Hey, what's going on YouTube? EXO coming at you here with another second channel video. I can't believe how many people didn't even know this channel existed over from my main channel. So if you find yourself here, huge high five and hats off to you for checking out the more behind the scenes stuff. Today, we got a cool little video starting off where we left off last time. I alluded to a nice little intricate RCA tease last time, and I'm gonna go through the whole layout here on a whiteboard, and hopefully by the end of all this, you'll have a better understanding of how I personally went about it. This is by no means the only way to do things. I just had a certain set of features and functions that I required, so this is what I did. Let's go ahead and start where the madness begins with our source unit. Here's the first example of doing things slightly differently, even though it's getting more and more common nowadays. You can see we're not using a standard car radio. I have dealt with a plethora of issues that just avoid it altogether, let alone the durability of it, the navigation of the UI, and boot up times if you have a USB stick. Oh my gosh, don't even get me started. So I avoided all that and chose this time to go with a Samsung Galaxy tablet. I mean, let's face it, it is so much better to have a giant touchscreen navigating through thousands of bass songs. Some of those folders are gigantic and you can sit there for ages trying to navigate through your double din. And plus, I'm usually paired to Bluetooth anyway, so that's also a huge requirement for me. So instead of using the standard DACs that come with an aftermarket radio, which obviously aren't as high resolution, I got this designated receiver. It's called a Oris Bloom or a Blue Me Pro. I'm not quite sure, but boy oh boy, does this elevate your Bluetooth experience. That means I can play whatever I want in a more spontaneous sense with my mobile media player, and then with my permanent stationary media player, that can be wired up directly with a USB cord, digital signaled right to the back DSP. And as far as the transmitter for the Bluetooth goes, I just used a coaxial cable for digital signal because the DSP only has one input for each. And the good thing about digital signal is there's no susceptibility to outside interference. The signal either gets there or it doesn't, unlike RCA, which have so much susceptibility to taking on all that noise, even from an alternator or a set of LEDs. We eliminate that whole risk, so I ran them right down the cabin without a care in the world. The Toslink and coax get carefully routed behind all the equipment and plums right to, arguably, the most important piece of the puzzle, our DSP Pro. This is our main control center. This MK2 controls everything from our tweeters, mid-range, to the mid-bass and subs. That means we're well acquainted with the first 3 devices in the chain of command. Let's go ahead and mark those on our whiteboard. There we go, we got our Bluetooth transmitter denoted alongside of our USB, which is of course our tablet, but it runs off of a USB cable. And since that's all connected through digital means, we're just gonna go ahead and draw a line right between these 3. And boom, now we have digital signal coming from our source units to our DSP. This will split up our signal to act as both a crossover and a line level adjuster. Now here's where things get a little interesting up here. When I'm in control of these subwoofers, I like to have options, fail safes. In case something goes wrong, I like to be able to have something on the back burner that can get me through in a pinch. So that's why, as far as bass control goes, I have 3 different modes. The first is a wired direct connection in line with our RCA. I have a PAC LC1. Number 2 is wireless, more luxury, kind of going a little bit of the road of experimental too. This was just a fun thing to have with this AmpLab bass knob. And then to bypass all of those, I can have my director control it all, which is directly to the DSP, no sort of inline control modules or devices. So that's where 18A comes into play. This is the first bass output going directly to an RCA distribution box, which denotes the fact that we wanted a wired connection, a wireless connection, and be able to bypass them completely with our Helix director. You can see how everything's ran in from 18A and the outputs run up the wall into a large switch box. That allows me to pick and choose between all those functions on a whim and gives me the bonus of having a kill switch for everything all together. So now maybe you can see why we have two different colored boxes on the top and bottom. Could those represent something? Of course. This is gonna be our wireless bass knob, and this is gonna be our wired bass knob. And just like we showed on the side wall, these are just connected with the short little RCA cables. So I'm gonna do a simple line right across, and then we'll color code from there so we can separate each function easily here on video. So we'll draw an RCA line into our wired knob and an RCA to our wireless knob. And then of course from there we explained that we have our switch box mounted just above those. So let's go ahead and run those cables right into our switch box. And boom, there's our two different options. Now to denote the bypass, which is really important, we like being able to say, you know what, screw all this, let's go straight to the horse's mouth. So we're able to bypass all of this right down the middle. Oh, and whoops, I totally forgot to mark our RCA distribution box, which we showed, and our switch box. Let's write that down. Now it gets us to where we just were. So here's where we left off in the chain of command with the inputs wired for our bypass, wired and wireless connections. Now we just need to be able to have an output. We know what's coming in, and then we have a selectable output. We have one which says direct, which goes directly to the subwoofers, the amplifiers, I should say. And then we have one that says DSPB. I wonder what that could mean. As you can see, we have 12 bass amps back here, and splitting up the RCA signal a dozen different times can get a little tricky, but it's most commonly done with a big RCA distro block. But this time I have the option to go active and individually address each amplifier with its own RCA for even finer tuning, especially when it comes to gain matching and phase matching. That means we have our tri-path of different control options directly in line with either our amplifiers or our second DSP, which gives us even more customability on all outputs. So with all that explained, connecting everything up is pretty straightforward. All we need is a direct output from our switch box to our amps. So let's draw a nice long run all the way back to our amplifiers. That's what that signifies. And now we need a way to get this same signal, since we have two outputs on our switch box, to our second DSP. So I'll go ahead and trace another line parallel to our other output directly to our second DSP. What this allows us to do is have each one of these functions still work on our second DSP. Even though it's coming from our master DSP and all this is down the line, we can use our switch box to designate all that signal to our active DSP that goes in 12 different directions versus our first DSP, which only does one output split 12 different times. And to go one step further, to basically eliminate all of this. Say if I just want it, something terrible happened and I need to eliminate all of this mess, I can do one more additional bypass that will get me from DSP1 to DSP2. So I'm gonna go ahead and add another connection right here, which is our second bypass. So now, not only do we have the option to let the master and main control everything, including the bass with our Helix director, our wired knob, or our wireless knob, we can do the same dang thing by sending the signal to the second DSP and eliminating all of this or keeping all of it. It's option after option. Obviously, we would need to finish up the drawing with our last denoted output from DSP2. This is 12 channels of active bass. I'm just gonna draw one line. So here's the official layout. And yeah, let's go ahead and give you one little pulled back view. So here's my overall thoughts. Am I glad that I did it this way? Abso-freaking-lutely, because you would not even believe, even with all this prep and thought and planning, the first thing when I fired this up, I let Hunter Martin know because he has a soft spot for RCAs just like me. I had a bad RCA. One of my stingers from the factory, something must have been wrong from Dogtown, man, because I had a wicked, hellacious humming noise, like wicked bad. So I ended up replacing the RCA good as new because I was really bumming. Man, I got all this digital signal and I'm still experiencing something. Well, it was down the chain. It was this RCA right here. I have these big, heavy mumbo jumbo, so I had to replace one of my 4 channels. I have 3 sets of 4 channels, so 4, 8, 12 different channels running down to the back. It was just one set. You never know with big builds like this, even if you do 100% planning. So I hope you enjoyed this video, just a nice little concise laid back rundown of our DSP RCA setup. If you're curious about our DSP settings, that'll be a whole nother video. It's kind of hard to film that. Maybe I have to do like a screen recording or something. I don't know. But either way, thank you all so much for being here on the second channel. If you're coming from the main channel, definitely stick around. I'm gonna do some more stuff like this. Feels good to have you guys for dang near, what, like 16 years now? Goodness, over 16 years. Woohoo! I feel old. I will talk to you guys in the next video. Thanks again for watching.